All right. So announcements for this week. We're watching The Ring on October 22nd. That was changed from Monday to Tuesday now. We're also doing it at 7 p.m. Eric and I will be getting the gyoza ready this weekend. And then next week we're going to be rotating back to grammar for a bit to kind of break into our new rotation. And if I can get my thing back up, I can change slides. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into some review from last week. And can anyone tell me what matsu means?
To have.
To hold.
Yes, correctly, to hold, but to have also works. How about naru?
To become.
Yep. Iru.
To exist for living things.
Yep, cat girls have irus. Suru means.
It's to do.
Yep. I can't remember what our acronym for that was.
So you can do it.
Sure you can. Yep. Desu
It is.
Yep. And aru.
To live for not
Existing.
existing.
Yeah. Exists. Next up, we had iu means
To say.
to say. Oku means.
To put.
Yep. Okuru means
To carry.
To send.
To send.
to send. Deliver the pack. Send
Deliver.
it to Okuru. Matsu means
To wait.
wait on the matsu. Miru,
To see.
look in the miru. Iku means
To go.
yep. Another slide. Yobu means
To call.
To
Or
call.
to summon.
yep. Tsuku means
To arrive.
yep. Taberu,
To eat.
au,
To meet.
nomu,
To
To drink.
drink.
ukeru,
To receive.
yep. Receive ukulele. Something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We might come up with better ones for that later. Who knows? And then the last three are kaeru.
To return.
Yep, to return home. Tsukuru.
To make.
Yep. And manabu.
To learn.
Yep. Good job, guys. So, before we got into the meat of today, I wanted to go over a quick example of how to use the verb suru, or formally shimasu. Basically, it can turn almost anything into a verb. So, say you have the word for phone, which is denwa. So, to make the verb to like call someone, you would say denwa shimasu. Or another example is kisu shitai, which means want to kiss. Shitai being the conjugation for desire that we learned earlier. And then the last one is aruki. I think it's pronounced aruki shimasen, which is to not want to take a walk. Anyway, with that out of the way, we're getting into kanji bootcamp / introduction today. We're not really going to be hardcore hammering these in this week. We'll do that, or we'll start to really learn them next week. But basically, what are the kanji? The Japanese has 3 written languages: the hiragana, the katakana, and the kanji. And we can see examples up here. The hiragana being much rounder, and a lot of these simple shapes that you'll see. The katakana being basically the same thing, but a lot sharper and harder. And then the famous kanji, for which there are over 2,000 characters. So, how are we going to learn all of these? We're not learning all of them here, obviously, but you don't need to learn all of them either. The best way, if you want to get into starting to practice this, is an app called Anki, which is the Japanese word for memorization or memory. And it's free if you get it on Android or use the PC/browser version. But on iOS, it's about $25, I've heard. I saw $40 from a friend, but that friend was also in Australia, so I don't think the currency lined up. But anyway, we're going to be breaking down kind of how the kanji work and really looking at some of them. But first, let's get into some of the first kanji that we'll see. Last year, if you guys were here last year, you should recognize all of these as the good old numbers, being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through 10, and then 100, 1,000, and 10,000. So those ones should be fairly familiar to you, especially if you've seen Bleach. Next up, some examples of the basic elemental kanji. So there's like the kanji for water, the kanji for fire, one for dirt / kind of the earth and ground, one for stone, one for heaven, one for sun, one for moon, and one for gold. You see them on all the hats of the Kage and Naruto. There's kanji for different objects such as person, book, yen, rice field, eye, mouth, and heart. And now, kind of breaking these down, you see that some of them these ones are all fairly easy, and they don't have too many strokes. Like fire is just kind of two little. It's the same kanji as if we see here person, but it has 2 little flags on it. So all of these should be fairly easy to start breaking down quickly. And I kind of wanted to start throwing these up here and going through them so that I didn't bore you right away with the radicals. But if we really want to get good at learning kanji, we do have to learn the radicals. So what are they exactly? Radicals are basically just used to build bigger kanji. And they're not things that you need to be able to read off like, oh, that radical means this, and here's all of the readings for it. I would never expect that of anyone, and it would be terrible, and nobody would want to do it. Because you'll never actually see them written alone. The radicals that we're learning are going to be things that will help you look at a kanji and say, I kind of recognize this shape, and this shape helps make it distinct. So starting out, we have the radical for lid / top being like a pot lid. You have the flat surface of it that you put down onto the pot, and then you have the little stick coming out the top, which is kind of the handle. If you've ever seen like a rope handle, kind of, if you know, rather than like an actual handle, when they kind of just have a piece of rope that you grab it by, you just fist that rope to bring it up. That's what this is. Person, it's kind of, if you recognize the katakana for E, that's what this is, but with a little bit of a longer snout. Basically, you think of like a person with their arms out. Another one for person is that, and you kind of recognize like the little shape of it's close to the katakana for hey, which the best way I've learned for that is you really use your diaphragm when you say hey, and you can kind of think about it as breathing out. So if you think about the shape of your diaphragm down here when you breathe out, that's the sound that hey makes. And don't be too concerned if you're thinking don't be too concerned when you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, I'm just gonna think that's hey and not person, because the meaning that it looking at it and thinking this is the radical for person doesn't really matter so much. Person is just kind of a nice name to assign it to make it stick in memory. Next up, we kind of have the legs, where you can kind of see they come down. You have your little feet at the bottom. Cover slash crown, kind of, it has the top, and then it actually has the sides instead, because it would be something you set down as a cover. Or if you think about the Minecraft hat recipe, that's what that is. And then knife slash sword, you kind of think here's the sheath, putting the sword into the sheath. You have a cliff, which is just, a cliff face. You run along here and you jump off the bottom. Mouth is kind of a open square. You think of someone opening their mouth. Border is kind of the same thing. You'll see in different kanji that this does actually matter in a difference from this. There's the slanting roof, which is kind of a chimney up here with the roof, and it kind of slants down here. The curve is kind of important. Again, the roof is kind of a combination of the crown and the lid with the little top and the sides. Step right here. I don't really have a good one for this, but you should recognize it from the kanji iku. Grass, you kind of think of the ground right here, and below ground with the roots kind of popping up as grass. And strike, you can kind of think, you can kind of see the two curves, like the two legs right here, and then the two arms holding swords up and striking them together. So, do we actually use these? No, absolutely not. The absolute only time that I've ever seen one of these used by itself from this slide is mouth, right here, which is right here, and mouth, well, it's actually the kanji for, the radical's called border, but this kanji right here means mouth. So instead, they give us a baseline to break down the kanji to make them easier to remember. So we have the radical for grass, right? And we recognize this and we kind of go, oh, yeah, I know this is grass. So when we think about hana, the kanji for flower, we think, well, flower is a type of grass or plant, so we know that the grass or plant radical is there. And then we can kind of see, well, here's the radical for person, and here's the radical for 7. So we can kind of break it up, and it makes it easier rather than just memorizing all these weird strokes. We start to recognize patterns, and then we start to recognize how these patterns are put together into words or kanji. And the same is kind of true as we start to learn more kanji. We'll start to learn, like, bug is one that you'll see a lot as an individual kanji. But it's also used a lot in other kanji, whereas, like, this is directly the word for bug. This is, you can see it within this kanji, which means strength. So the kanji for strength is the word for bow plus the katakana for mu and the kanji for bug. And you can break it up and see that you have your bow right here. And if you didn't recognize some of these radicals, you might try to do that. But because we know the radicals, we can see that it's a mu attached to a bug. And so that, in theory, should make it a lot easier to help us start recognizing the difference between these, because you can see that there's trying to actually memorize the strokes for this would be obnoxious without recognizing that you can put together parts of it. And if you remember parts of it, you'll know what parts of it you don't know. So you can at least memorize a bit of it, if that makes sense. So, what do I want you guys to do? We're going to start learning these. And next week, we'll kind of go over and we'll start drilling some of the basic kanji in. But for now, we're just going to start getting some practice writing some of these things in. So, let's all pull open our favorite writing utility, such as OneNote. And let me adjust my Wacom. Now, to start off with some of the basic kanji that I want you guys to write, go ahead and write with me the kanji for person, which can be pronounced Jin by itself. And to do that, we want to do a down. Hello? Okay. We would go like that and like that. Try to keep it straight. So go ahead and write down this kanji. And let's just practice writing it a few times. You think about a person and you have their upper body and then it kind of splits apart into two legs. We remember this as the kanji for person. It is a radical, but this is also used as the kanji for person. And if we were really fancy, I'd have the paper that they use, because school kids and many people learning Japanese will be given paper where it's just simply box after box after box, and you will start and you'll write kanji, and you'll just keep practicing that kanji. This is turning out to look like he because OneNote is great and I can't see my cursor.
Try changing your pen weight up in draw.
Yeah, but I don't like that. It's barely more visible.
You can go even thicker than that.
So, everybody feel comfortable with this kanji? Alright, let's move on to another one. We're going to go ahead and skip most of the numbers and move straight on to the kanji for sun, which many of you will recognize from last year as well. And that kanji is written like this. Be careful about the tails. You want to try to keep it flush so that it does not, you want to try to eliminate as much of that tail as possible and get it down to just kind of a very square, very straight kanji. Having a bit of a tail isn't too big of a deal. It's still very recognizable like this. And we also aren't going to get too much into stroke order yet. But I'm going to hope that my stroke order is correct, although it might not be. This kanji is all the kanji that I'm going to be teaching tonight are going to be kanji that you can use by themselves as recognizable, and this one can be used for kind of denoting sun or the day, denoting AM versus PM, whereas kanji for moon would denote PM, or no, it wouldn't, sorry. But this would definitely denote daytime. So, once everyone kind of feels comfortable writing that, we can move on to the next kanji, which is the kanji for moon. And that kanji will be written like this. We have some very strong tails on this one, and this is why we want to keep our tails on our sun very short, because it separates it from the kanji for the moon. Alright, so the next kanji that we'll learn is the kanji for fire, and that one would be written as the kanji for person, but we add two little marks like that to the side. This one is kind of a fun one, because if you play Pokemon, you'll notice that a lot of the time when you see the move Fire Blast, most games will have it form kind of this 5-pronged fire blast full of fire, and that's actually meant to be shaped like this kanji right here. So it's literally a fire blast. And usage for this that we'll see is if you write it in combination with the kanji for mountain, this would mean volcano, fire mountain. Next up, let's go ahead and learn the kanji for water, which will be written like this. Kind of, it's a bit weird. It's a bit hard to draw. Mainly what we want to do is we want to make sure that the side is disconnected and draw a very strong line like that. I will actually go ahead and pull up some of these kanji. Back on our PowerPoint here, you can see them written more correctly with sun, moon, fire, and water. All right. So next up, let's go ahead and learn the kanji for mountain. And that one would be like this. We have kind of a strong peak in the middle and two smaller ones on the side connected by this little bar down here. And the second to last one I want to teach today is the kanji for river, which would be written as kind of, you want the end one to curve and the middle and other one to be decently straight. You kind of think of this as water kind of flowing in a stream. Just becomes a little bit of a curve plus two other branches to show kind of a nice flow. And the kanji can also be used to denote an idea of like the flow of water or a general flow or direction. So you can see it used in places like you'll see it kind of in general telling directions for things, or kind of showing, I believe, I'm not sure on this, but I believe that the word for like traffic uses this kanji. A combination of this kanji plus the kanji for car in some way, which would denote like a flow of cars, meaning traffic. And Japanese kind of builds off these ideas, and while the kanji have a lot of different pronunciations, which is why I haven't really been going over them, we'll be drilling those later. I just kind of wanted you guys to get down writing these kanji and getting a feel for the idea. And yes, you have the correct kanji for car down there. I see. Although I don't believe that's how traffic is written directly. There's probably a lot more to it. I'm not actually sure. But I will probably find out eventually. So if everyone feels comfortable there, it's a fairly easy kanji. We can get into the last one I want to teach, which is the kanji for tree. And that would be written like this. We kind of have that sign for person with a stick down the middle and a cross right here. So you kind of think about the shape of a pine tree, kind of. And it goes straight down. You'll have some branches coming out, some branches slanting, giving you kanji for tree. Interestingly, you've probably already drawn the kanji for forest accidentally on your paper as the kanji for forest. A grove would just kind of be like this. That is the kanji for a grove. It's just two trees. A kanji for like a big, large forest would be denoted like this. Just three trees. So you can see how some of these are put together to make it very, very easy. And calligraphy is very important to the Japanese, so the better you can get these down, yeah, the more respect you'll get as far as your written language over there. Now, if you're not good at this, or you find it hard, Japanese school kids do too. That's why they have you'll see boxes full of kanji, and they'll just go on and have notebooks full of these things, because that's mostly what their language classes are in elementary school, is just drilling out all of the kanji over and over again. They waste a lot of paper over there. Because if you think about back to kindergarten here, when you learned to write English, you probably did something similar with the boxes to write A, B, C, and try to keep it. That really helps you kind of get the feel for larger shapes of kanji when you have to keep them proportioned correctly. And it really shows you like you're going way too big on this, and helps you position it. So if you can pick up a bunch of those sheets at some point, or pick up a notebook of those are really good to help practice. I'm sure you can download templates online if you want to practice on your tablet. But I would definitely start, whenever you start seeing a kanji, start writing it, or at least kind of picturing in your head, and kind of taking your finger and trying to draw it out in the middle of public and looking like a weirdo, because I want you guys to look like weirdos, because then people ask what you're doing and then they get interested, or just continue to call you a weirdo, probably. I don't know. Anyway. Tonight, now that we've kind of got a good idea of what radicals are, I wanted to kind of forego episode. We're still going to be watching episode 11 and 12 next week, but tonight I wanted to watch videos about swords, so we're going to have the playlist linked here. But it's the same channel. He has a playlist about legendary weapons of Japan, and I wanted to watch the ones about the Murasama and Masamune swords, because they're really cool. So, as usual, not going to be showing that on the recording, but make sure you go check it out.